Okay, let's do some solving for velocity, frequency, and wavelength. So v is velocity in meters per second. This little upside down lambda, or that lambda there, upside down y is wavelength, and the f is frequency measured in hertz. This t, that marks period, which we measure in seconds, and the little f is going to be frequency again. So this first one here doesn't really actually require a lot of calculations. It says fisherman times a wave, and it's 5 seconds for one full wave to pass. Well, period is the length of time between. So the answer is 5 seconds. But for how to solve for frequency, that's going to be 1 over period. So just 1 over 5, 5 to the negative 1, or the inverse there is going to give you 0.2 hertz. You can also punch that in your calculator by looking for the x to the negative 1 or 1 over x. This next one here says a tuning fork vibrates 1500 times per second. Well, frequency is how many times something happens per second. So that means that this one actually just has a frequency of 1500 hertz. No calculations required for this. But if you actually want to solve for the period, again, you can just use this inverse function there. It's just 1 over 1500, 1 over the frequency. That's going to give you 0.00067 seconds. So that one is the answer for that one. Here's the answer for that one. No calculations were required for this, but we'll do some of those later. So this first one here says 9 waves pass by every second. What is the period? Well, for this one here, frequency and period are my two variables. My frequency is 9 hertz. My period is unknown. Well, period is 1 over frequency, so that's going to be 1 over 9, which is going to give me 0.11 seconds since it's a length of time. All right, this next one here, we actually need to use our equation pyramid. Find the wavelength if that's the frequency and that's the speed. So velocity, frequency, and wavelength are my 3 variables. My wavelength is unknown, my frequency is 0.8 hertz, and my velocity is 6 meters per second. Wavelength is velocity divided by frequency, so that's going to be 6 divided by 0.8, which is going to give me 7.5 meters, since this is a measurement of distance for wavelength. Let's try a couple more here. What is the speed of an ocean wave that has a wavelength of 40 centimeters and a frequency of 2.7? So I have my frequency there, but I can't punch in the wavelength because I need that in meters. So I need to convert 40 centimeters into meters. Well, I'm going to move the decimal point 2 to the left, which means that it's going to be 0.4 meters. So velocity is frequency times wavelength, 2.7 times 0.4. That is going to give me 1.08 meters per second. That is my speed. Next one, calculate the frequency. So in this case here, my frequency is unknown, my velocity is 2.3, and my wavelength is 0.7. Frequency is velocity over wavelength, 2.3 divided by 0.7, which is going to give me 3.29 hertz. That is how often it's going to be seeing one of those waves pass. This next one here, you just kind of got to write it out, probably the easiest way to look at it. It says 25 times in 5 seconds. So think of it, it has 25 cycles in 5 seconds. Well, if you simplify that, you get 5 cycles per second, which is actually going to be 5 of anything per second is going to be 5 hertz. Now to get to the period, I need to do 1 over that. 1 over 5 is going to give me 0.2 seconds. That is going to be the period, and that means that is the frequency. So just remember, they are inverses of each other. All right, let's try a couple more here. In this case, my wavelength is unknown, my frequency is 11.5 hertz, and my velocity is 4.3. Wavelength is velocity over frequency, 4.3 divided by 11.5 is going to give me 0.374 meters. That's how I calculate this last one. Here I'm looking for speed, but here's the issue. I have period instead of frequency, so I need to convert that. So the period is 2 seconds, frequency is 1 over that, so 1 over 2 gives me 0.5 hertz. That's what I have to plug in. You got to be really careful with that. The rest of it pretty self-explanatory. Frequency times wavelength. 0.5 times 0.6 is going to give me 0.3 meters per second. That is going to be my speed. Remember, if they give you period, convert that to frequency. Last couple ones here. This one here is going to be very similar, but it's asking for period. So what I need to solve for first is the frequency, which is velocity over wavelength. 4,000 divided by 600 is going to give me 6.67 hertz, but that's not the answer. I need to still look for what the period is. So I'm going to do 1 over that, 1 divided by 6.67, which is going to work out to be 0.150 seconds. That's the length of time between each beat. This last one down here, you got to simplify it in 7 waves in 21 seconds. Simplify that, as your math teacher would tell you. 7 over 21, you could work that out to be 1 over 3, but I'm going to do it in decimal form. 0.33 waves per second, so that means 0.33 is the frequency. Now, to get to period, I need to do the inverse of that one, 1 over 0.33, which is going to work out to be 3 seconds. So that is my period, that is my frequency.